Hi guys, I'm still not feeling all that well. Um, Still got a sore throat, but I'm gonna do Saturday live stream anyway. Um, However, I hope you don't mind. I'm not going to do comment of the week today, and I'm not going to do today in history. I am just going to get to the main event, which is another dumb story in the Bible. I know there are a lot of dumb stories in the Bible. Um, And this one is the Exodus, but actually we start with the Passover. And remember, this is not real. This is just something the Israelites made up. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, "This month is to be for you the first month of your year. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. If any household is too small for a whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor, having taken into account the number of people there are." Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Um, You are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect, and you may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month, when all the members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. And God definitely loves his killing. Telling you. He killed all the firstborn males. Well, he will, according to the story. Remember, it never happened, thankfully. But according to the story, he's going to kill all the firstborn males in Egypt. And not just in the humans either. So keep that in mind. He loves his killing for some reason. He's the blood god. Verse 7, then they are to take some of the blood. See what I mean by blood god? And put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where they eat the lambs. That same night they are to eat the meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Do not eat the meat raw or boiled in water, but roast it over a fire with the head, legs, and internal organs. Now I got a question. Why does he even need to say don't eat it raw? That's just gross. And why are they... I'm getting... I'm sorry. I'm laughing because I'm getting a picture in my mind of those pigs that are roasted over an open fire, the legs are tied over the stick, and so you can just um, um, rotate it, with the stick. That's what I want to know, Nevermore. Why does God need this? And they even live in a separate part of Egypt than the Egyptians. See, that's the thing. Because they obviously forgot that they said earlier that they lived in the land of Goshen, which is away from the Egyptians. So why does he even need this? I have no idea. I have no idea. Do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till morning, you must burn it. So wait a minute. Are you telling me? Yes, on a spit. Thank you, Marianne. Are you telling me they ate the head too? That is a very, very good way to get Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Do not leave, verse 10, do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till morning, you must burn it. Now that's just a waste of food. This is how you are to eat it. Oh, so it's not just enough to eat it. This is true nevermore. Only if they eat the brain will they get Creutzfeldt-Jakob. But he said the internal organs too. So you got to wonder. And this God is so so idiotic that he even needs to tell them how to eat it. Okay. Verse 11, this is how you are to eat it. With your cloak tucked into your belt. What's that got to do with anything? Your sandals on your feet and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. What does cloak being tucked into your belt, sandals on your feet, and staff in your hand have to do with anything? Doesn't make any sense. Of course, this is the Bible. Do you expect it to make sense? Verse 12, on that same night, I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn of both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. Okay, I want to just stop here and focus on that last phrase, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. Okay, Christians, you say these gods are false gods, that the only true God is the God of heaven, or Yahweh, which I'm not even going to get into right now. But if the gods of Egypt are false gods, why does Yahweh need to bring judgment upon all the gods of Egypt? Just saying. Verse 13, the blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. Again, blood God. Now, I will say that ancient Israel was not the only well, this is before ancient Israel. This is before Israel even became a thing. But, you know, pretending it really happened, pretending this really happened. I will say Israel is not the only ancient civilization that had a blood thing. You know, the Aztecs had a blood thing. Um, they actually believed that the sun god would run out of energy if they did not sacrifice humans to the sun god. So that's why they sacrificed humans. It wasn't just, you know, to sacrifice things. It was because they believed he needed their energy in order to come up the next morning. Verse 14. This is a day you are to commemorate. For the generations to come, you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance. For 7 days you are to eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, remove the yeast from your houses, for whoever eats anything with yeast in it from the first day through the 7th must be cut off from Israel. This isn't sounding like a very good God to me. I mean, you see people are like, hey, the Christian God's the good God. Excuse me? You ever read the Bible? Verse 16. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly, and another one on the 7th day. Do no work at all on these days, except to prepare food for everyone to eat. That is all you may do. Oh, great God. So, like, if I go into labor, I can't have my baby? That's basically what you're saying here. Having a baby's work, God. Can't exactly not have a baby when the baby's ready to come. Verse 17. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread, because it was on this very day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. Celebrate this day as a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. In the first month, you are to eat bread made without yeast. From the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day. For 7 days, no yeast is to be found in your houses, and anyone, whether foreigner or native born, who eats anything with yeast in it must be cut off from the community of Israel. Eat nothing made with yeast. Wherever you live, you must eat unleavened bread. I think we got it, God. I think we got it after the first 5 times. Verse 21. Then Moses summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, Go at once and select the animals for your families and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it into the blood in the basin, and put some on the top and on both sides of the doorframe. None of you shall go out of the door of your house until morning. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and the sides of the doorframe, and will pass over that doorway, and he will not permit the destroyer to enter your houses and strike you down. Obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants when you enter the land that the Lord will give you as he promised. Observe this ceremony. And when your children ask you, what does this ceremony mean to you? Then tell them it is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt and spared our homes when he struck down the Egyptians. Then the people bowed down and worshipped. The Israelites did just what the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner, who was in the stock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. Marianne, it just flabbergasts me. I mean, really, it does. Verse 31. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds, as you have said, and go, and also bless me." The Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, we will all die. So the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing. The Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. I just gotta ask, why does an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-whatever God need silver and gold? Verse 36. The Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them whatever they asked for. So they plundered the Egyptians. Okay, God, so if you could do this after you kill all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, why couldn't you have done it before instead of hardening Pharaoh's heart? Because this is all your goddamn fault. Verse 37. The Israelites journeyed from Ramses to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. All right, now I just want to stop here and say, if you look at this, this is only a few generations past the flood, okay? Now, if you use answers in Genesis, they say something about a doubling every generation or whatever. But if you use the answers in Genesis calculation for the repopulation of the earth after the so-called flood, which never happened, there wouldn't have been 600,000 people on the face of the earth at this time, let alone just men in Israel. So, just wanted to say that. Verse 38. Many other people went up with them, and also large droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. With the dough the Israelites had brought from Egypt, they baked loaves of unleavened bread. The dough was without yeast because they had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare food for themselves. Now, the length of time the Israelite people lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's divisions left Egypt, because the Lord kept vigil that night to bring them out of Egypt. On this night, all the Israelites are to keep vigil to honor the Lord for the generations to come. Why does God need to keep vigil? I thought he was all-seeing. If he's all-seeing and all-knowing, why does he need to keep a vigil? Verse 43. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, these are the regulations for the Passover meal. No foreigner may eat it. Any slave you have bought may eat it after you have circumcised him, but a temporary resident or a hired worker may not eat it. It must be eaten inside the house. Take none of the meat outside the house. Do not break any of the bones. The whole community of Israel must celebrate it. A foreigner residing among you who wants to celebrate the Lord's Passover must have all the males in his household circumcised. Then he may take part like one born in the land. God sure is really serious about this genital mutilation, isn't he? No uncircumcised male may eat it. The same law applies both to the native-born and foreign-born residing among you. Verse 50. All the Israelites did just what the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, and on that very day the Lord brought the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions. Chapter 13. The Lord said to Moses, consecrate to me every firstborn male. The first offspring of every womb among the Israelites belongs to me, whether human or animal. Well, that's very selfish of you, God. Verse 3. Then Moses said to the people, commemorate this day, the day you came out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast. Today, in the month of Aviv, you are leaving. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, the land he swore to your ancestors to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, and on the 7th day hold a festival to the Lord. Eat unleavened bread during those 7 days. Nothing with yeast in it is to be seen among you, nor shall any yeast be seen anywhere within your borders. On that day, tell your son, I do this because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. This observance will be for you like a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead that this law of the Lord is to be on your lips. For the Lord brought you out of Egypt with his mighty hand. You must keep this ordinance at the appointed time year after year. Verse 11. After the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you, as he promised an oath to you and your ancestors, you are to give over to the Lord the first offspring of every womb. All the firstborn males of your livestock belong to the Lord. Redeem with a lamb every firstborn donkey, but if you do not redeem it, break its neck. Redeem every firstborn among your sons. Well, geez, God, that's a bit racist, don't you think? You want the lambs, but not the donkeys? Sheesh! Why'd you create donkeys if you don't like them? In days to come, when your sons ask you, what does this mean? Say to him, with a mighty hand, the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, slight correction there. When God hardened the Pharaoh's heart so that he wouldn't let him go, therefore making this whole domino effect. The Lord killed the firstborn of both people and animals in Egypt. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord the first male offspring of every womb and redeem each of my firstborn sons. And it will be like a sign on your hand and a symbol on your forehead that the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his mighty hand. Some mighty hand. He could have just, I don't know, snapped his fingers, not done all of this hoo-ha. Verse 17. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. Yeah, actually, God, let's see, I think in that time, the crossing of between Egypt and Canaan would have been somewhere around 10 days or so. But yeah, God let him spend 40 years. Great going, God. Great going. I'm glad you have a sense of direction, God. For God said if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. So wait a minute. The Israelites are ready for battle. But God's saying if they face war, what the hell is going on here? Doesn't God know everything? Verse 19. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the Israelites swear an oath. He had said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. After leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. 14. Then the Lord, chapter 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-Hirith between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself. Selfish God. Really, really selfish. Hey, Free. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites did this. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We've let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he made his chariots ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites, who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi Hahiroth, opposite Baal Zephon. Okay, just to tell you, I don't think you need to know. Hey, junk shop library, what you doing? Don't think you need to be told this, but Pharaoh would not have taken all of his army out to pursue the Israelites. He would have left some of his army at home to protect Egypt. I like your Nephi series, Junk Shop. Verse 10. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. I'd like to know how they knew they were the Egyptians. It could have been anybody. I mean, seriously, these people are, traipsing through land, probably somebody else's land. They could have pissed off anybody. Verse 11. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt?" Seriously, whoever wrote this, you couldn't find a better thing to say than, "Was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to die in the desert?" Seriously, this is all you could think of? Doesn't impress me. "Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." Sure. That's a great way to win a fight. Great way to win a fight, God. Verse 15. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them." Again, it's his fault. Every damn thing in Exodus thus far is his fault. God's fault. Just remember that. "And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen." Well, we've got to tickle the megalomaniac. Verse 18. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh and his chariots and his horsemen. How? How, God? You're not going to leave any of them alive. How are you going to gain glory? Who's going to go back and say, hey, look, the entire army except us drowned in the sea? Who's going to go back? Who's going to give you glory? Am I the only one this doesn't make sense to? Verse 19, then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side, so neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. Not possible. I'm just saying, it's not possible. There's no friggin' way you can turn a sea into a dry land overnight. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued them, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. During the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. He jammed the wheels of their chariots so that they had difficulty driving. And the Egyptians said, let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and their horsemen. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the mighty hand of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put his trust in him and in Moses, his servant. Okay, so first of all, God is a monster twice over because the women who just had to bury their firstborn sons now somehow have to hear, I don't know how, because again, there's nobody left to say, hey, everybody's dead. Don't know how. But these women who just buried their children are now going to have to hear that their husbands are dead. What kind of a monster does that? Also, I had a Christian ask me this one time. Actually asked me this. He or she said, yeah, but they found a chariot wheel an Egyptian chariot wheel in the Red Sea. And I came back at him or her, and I said, Okay, so if the entire Egyptian army had drowned in the Red Sea, there would be far more than just one Egyptian chariot wheel in the Red Sea. Did not get a response to that. Chapter 15. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted, both horse and driver. He has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him. My Father's God, and I will exalt him. So basically, they're just kissing God's ass, which is what he wants. I mean, obviously this God doesn't exist. But if he did exist, this is what he wants, is for people to kiss his ass. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. By the way, there was a note earlier that it could be the Reed Sea. Those are actually two different seas. Just so you know. The deep waters have covered them. They sink to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you threw down those who opposed you. You unleashed your burning anger. It consumed them like stubble. By the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The surging waters stood up like a wall. The deep waters congealed in the heart of the sea. Wait a minute. So, the wind is God blowing air through his nostrils. Good to know. We might want to be on the lookout for God's not people. The enemy boasted, I will pursue, I will overtake them, I will divide the spoils, I will gorge myself on them, I will draw my sword, and my hand will destroy them. But you blew with your breath, and the sea covered them. They sink like lead in the mighty waters. Who among the gods is like you, Lord? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders? Again, they admit there are other gods. Who among the gods is like you, Lord? You stretch out your right hand, and the earth swallows your enemies. In your unfailing love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. In your strength, unfailing love. Wait and see how unfailing his love is, people. We've just started this crazy book. Wait to see how unfailing his love is. Verse 15, the chiefs of Edom will be terrified. The leaders of Moab will be seized with trembling. The people of Canaan will melt away. Terror and dread will fall on them. By the power of your arm, they will be as still as a stone until your people pass by, Lord, until the people you brought pass by. You will bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place, Lord, you made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, Lord, your hands established. The Lord reigns forever and ever. Nice way to kiss ass, people. Verse 19. When Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought the waters of the sea back over them. But the Israelites walked through on the sea on dry ground. Then Miriam, the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. Miriam sang to them, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea." Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That is why the place is called Marah. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" 3 days is the absolute limit a person can go without water. They would have been dead. Verse 25. Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. Wonder if that'll work here. I mean, if I go over to the Willamette River and I throw a piece of wood in the water, do you think it would become potable? I gotta try that. Nah, not really. I'm not up to getting waterborne illness. There the Lord issued a ruling and instruction for them and put them to the test. He said, "If you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. Okay. Chapter 16. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they came out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as what they gather on the other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumblings against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us?" Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? Who are we? We didn't do anything to you. We just did what God told us to do. You're not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Sure, grumbling against something they can't see. On the other hand, they can see you, and that's why they're grumbling against you. Verse 9. Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.'" While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, I've heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is it? For they didn't know what it was. Moses said to them, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some gathered a little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. Uh-huh. Sure they did. Verse 19. Then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. Actually, that was pretty good thinking. I mean, come on. Are we really supposed to think that we're going to get it tomorrow? And it could have been a fluke. Verse 21. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person. And the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep until morning. So they saved it until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any. Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commands and instructions? God, you're the one that ended up making them miserable by making the stuff full of maggots. Verse 29. Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, so that they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you up out of Egypt. So Moses and Aaron take a jar, put an omer of manna in it, then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come. As the Lord commanded, Aaron put the manna with the tablets of the covenant law so that it might be preserved. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of an ephah. Have no idea why that's there, but oh yeah, Marianne, that's coming. Chapter 17. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" Because they don't have any water to drink? I thought that was like obvious, But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord, by the way, I think Moses is like a drama queen. They're not ready to stone you, Moses. Ugh. Verse 5. The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" No, God, they asked you for water, which was a very reasonable request. Verse 8. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. Why should it matter whether Moses has his hands up or not? I mean, seriously, is God that dumb? Verse 12. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on each side, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven." Really? Then why is it in this book? Verse 15. Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Chapter 18. Now Jethro, the priest of Midian and father-in-law of Moses, heard of everything God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her 2 sons. That was mean, Moses. Why did you do that? And she is your wife. Come on. One son was named Gershom, for Moses said, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." And the other was named Eleazar, for he said, "My father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh." Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses' sons and wife, came to him in the wilderness, where he was camped near the mountain of God. Jethro had sent word to him, "I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and your 2 sons." So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. They greeted each other and then went into the tents. Moses told his father-in-law about everything the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and about all the hardships they had met along the way and how the Lord had saved them. Jethro was delighted to hear about all the good things the Lord had done for Israel in rescuing them from the hand of the Egyptians. He said, "Praise be to the Lord, who rescued you from the hands of the Egyptians and Pharaoh, and who rescued the people from the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods." Again, doesn't say he's the only God. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods, for he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge? Why do all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, "Because the people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions." If God is so all-powerful, why doesn't he just give his own decrees and instructions? Verse 17, Moses' father-in-law replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. If you do this and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied." Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. Gee, couldn't a God figured that one out? He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country.
Put in right there for recording.
And that's it for today. Gee, God couldn't have figured that one out. You need people, Moses. Yeah. Anyway, that's all there is for today. Like I said, we got a bunch more crap to get through in this book. And I'm already starting to get tired of it. I don't know about you. Yeah, Nevermore. God is drunk. I hear you on that one. Uh, yeah. So anyway, um, hit that thumbs up button. Leave a comment in the comment section to trigger the algorithm. If you would like to make a contribution to this channel, you may do so on my PayPal or um, on my Patreon. I will be having Patreon only content. So, be checking up there for Patreon only content. And I will see you guys later. Bye. Tomorrow, don't forget, Atheist Church.